I, 19F, walked into the wrong bedroom and now the Duke says we must marry. Have you ever made a mistake so catastrophic that you knew, in a single second, your life was over? I'm talking about the kind of mistake that doesn't just embarrass you, it destroys you. That is exactly what happened to me last night. I was 19 years old, terrified, and running for my dignity. I thought I was escaping a monster, but I ran straight into the den of a beast. Everyone calls him the Stone Duke. They say he has no heart. They say he destroyed his last fiancée. And I just walked into his bedroom in the middle of the night. So, the question is, did I just ruin my life? Or did I accidentally trap the most dangerous man in London? Before I confess everything, please take a second to hit that like button, it really helps the channel grow. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss the rest of this scandal. And I'd love to know, where are you listening from today? Let me know in the comments below. Now, let me tell you how I compromised the Duke. Chapter 1, The Mistake. My lungs were burning. That is the only thing I remember feeling. Just the fire in my chest and the sound of my own slippers slapping against the marble floor of the Wallingford estate. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew what I was running from. Lord Berwick. He had cornered me in the library, his breath smelling of stale port, his hands grasping at my waist. "Come now, Clara," he had whispered, his wet lips too close to my ear. "You're a poor relation. No dowry. No prospects. Who do you think will believe you over me?" I had shoved him harder than I thought I was capable of and sprinted into the corridor. But I could hear him behind me. I could hear his heavy footsteps and the laughter of the men he was drinking with. They were treating it like a hunt. I needed a door. Any door. I turned the corner, panic blinding me, and grabbed the first brass handle I saw. It turned. I threw myself inside, slammed the heavy oak door shut, and leaned my back against it, gasping for air. I slid the lock home with a trembling hand. Safe. The room was pitch black. At first, the silence was a relief. But then, as my breathing slowed, I realized two things. First, the air in here didn't smell like the hallway. It smelled of expensive sandalwood, dark tobacco, and warm skin. Second, I wasn't alone. "Are you an assassin?" a voice asked from the darkness. It was a deep voice. Low. Baritone. The kind of voice that vibrates in your chest. It wasn't fearful, it was bored. Or, the voice continued, "Are you just a thief?" I couldn't speak. My throat was dry as dust. A match struck. The flare of light blinded me for a second. As the flame touched the wick of a candle, the room was bathed in a soft, orange glow. I wasn't in a guest room. I was in the master suite. And standing by the fireplace, one hand resting on the mantel, was the Duke of Ashbourne. He was terrifying. He was taller than any man I had ever met, with hair as black as ink. But what made me freeze wasn't his height, it was his state of undress. He had removed his coat and waistcoat. His cravat was undone, hanging loose around his neck. His white shirt was unbuttoned at the top, exposing the hollow of his throat. He looked wild. Dangerous. He turned his head slowly, his grey eyes locking onto mine. He didn't look surprised. He looked at me with a cold, clinical detachment, as if I were a speck of dust on his boot. "Well," he asked, taking a step toward me. "I asked you a question. Speak, little mouse." I stammered, pressing myself harder against the door. "I am sorry, Your Grace. I didn't know. I was lost." Lost," he repeated flatly. "You are Miss Clara Danvers, are you not? The poor niece of the Baron?" He knew who I was. The shame made my face burn. "Yes, Your Grace. Please, let me leave. I swear I saw nothing." "Leave?" He arched a dark eyebrow. "You are in a duke's bedchamber, unchaperoned, at 2 in the morning. If you leave now, and anyone sees you..." We both froze. "Come out, you little tease." Lord Berwick's voice roared from the hallway, muffled by the wood. "I saw you run in there. Don't play shy with me." My blood ran cold. The Duke's eyes narrowed. He looked at the door, then back at me. He saw the terror in my eyes. He saw the way my hands were shaking. He put the pieces together instantly. "Open it," Berwick shouted. "Or we'll break it down." I looked at the Duke, tears spilling over. "Please," I whispered. "He'll ruin me." The Duke didn't say a word. He walked toward me. I flinched, thinking he was going to throw me to the wolves. But he didn't grab me. He reached past me and unlocked the door. He threw it open. Lord Berwick stumbled in, red-faced and drunk, with 3 other gentlemen behind him. They stopped dead when they saw the Duke of Ashbourne towering over them, half-dressed, with me cowering behind him in the shadows. The silence was deafening. Berwick blinked, his eyes darting from the Duke's unbuttoned shirt to my pale face. A slow, malicious grin spread across his face. Well, Berwick sneered. "Ashbourne. I didn't know you had a taste for charity cases." He turned to the other men. "You see, gentlemen, I told you she was no innocent. Caught in the act." He looked at me with triumph. "You're finished, Clara. You're ruined. No decent man will look at you now." I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. It was true. My reputation was dead. My life was over. The Duke took a step forward. The air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Ruined?" the Duke asked softly. His voice was like a blade sliding out of a sheath. He looked at Berwick, then he turned slowly to look at me. His expression was unreadable. Cold. Hard. Then, he did the unthinkable. He reached out and took my hand. His grip was iron strong. He pulled me out of the shadows and tucked my hand into the crook of his arm. "Ruined?" "Hardly," the Duke said, his voice ringing out so everyone in the corridor could hear. "I was merely informing my future Duchess of our engagement." He looked at Berwick with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, a smile that promised murder. "Now, get out of my fiancé's way." And just like that, I was engaged to the most terrifying man in England. But why did he do it? Why save a nobody like me? Join me in Chapter 2, where I try to escape this fake engagement, and the Duke reveals exactly how dangerous he can be. Chapter 2, the Duke trapped me in a marriage contract, and he won't let me leave. I thought the hardest part was over. I thought that when the Duke of Ashbourne stepped in front of me and told the world I was his fiancé, he was saving my life. I thought he was my hero. But I forgot one important thing about the Stone Duke. Men like him don't do charity. They do business. And the next morning, when he walked into my aunt's drawing room, I realized I hadn't been saved at all. I had been acquired. Welcome back to Chapter 2. If you thought the scandal was bad, wait until you hear the contract. And don't forget to subscribe for of my videos. The morning after the ball, the silence in my aunt's house was suffocating. My aunt wasn't angry. No, that would have been easier. She was ecstatic. "A duchess," she kept screeching, pacing the floor. "Clara, you sly little thing. To trap Ashbourne, the wealthiest man in England. You've saved us all." I sat on the edge of the sofa, staring at my hands. I felt sick. I hadn't trapped anyone. I was a prop. A shield he had used to deflect a scandal. "He won't come," I whispered. He said it to save face. "He'll send a letter today breaking it off." "He wouldn't dare," my aunt hissed. But before she could finish, the butler opened the doors. He looked pale. His Grace, the Duke of Ashbourne. He walked in like he owned the very air we breathed. By daylight, he was even more intimidating. He was dressed in severe black, his face composed of hard angles and cold indifference. He didn't look like a man in love. He looked like an executioner. He ignored my aunt completely. He walked straight to me. "Miss Danvers," he said. No bow. No smile. "Your Grace," I managed to whisper, standing up. My legs were shaking. He pulled a folded parchment from his coat pocket and placed it on the tea table. "The marriage settlements," he stated. "My solicitors have drafted them. You will find them generous. We marry by special license in 3 days. 3 days. My aunt gasped with delight. 3 days. Oh, Your Grace, how romantic. Unable to wait. The Duke didn't look at her. He kept his grey eyes fixed on mine. They were empty. There was no warmth. No reassurance. Just expectation. I suddenly felt cold. He was doing this out of duty. Because his honor demanded it. I was about to ruin his life because I opened the wrong door. I couldn't let him do it. No, I said. The ticking clock seemed to stop. My aunt choked. The Duke's eyes narrowed by a fraction of an inch. No, he repeated softly. I cannot accept this, Your Grace, I said, my voice trembling but my chin high. I know why you did what you did last night. You are a man of honor. You saved me from Lord Berwick. But I will not trap you into a marriage you do not want. I took a breath. I will leave London. I will go to the country. I will become a governess. The scandal will die down, and you will be free. I waited for him to look relieved. I waited for him to thank me. Instead, the temperature in the room plummeted. A sharp, sudden slam of a hand against the table. I jumped back. My aunt squeaked in terror. The Duke had slammed his hand down on the parchment. He wasn't looking at me with indifference anymore. He was looking at me with something that looked dangerously like anger. He leaned in close, invading my personal space. I could smell that same sandalwood and tobacco scent from the bedroom. It made my head spin. Do I look like a man who is trapped, Miss Danvers? He asked, his voice low and lethal. Do you think I let society dictate my choices? Do you think I let anyone tell me who I can and cannot marry? He loomed over me. You walked into my room. You placed your reputation in my hands. It is mine now to protect. And I do not fail in my duties. He grabbed the parchment and shoved it toward me. You will sign this. We will marry in 3 days. And you will never, never speak of leaving me again. Do you understand? I stared up at him, wide-eyed. This wasn't just honor. This was obsession. Why was he so angry that I wanted to leave? Why did his hand clench into a fist at his side when I mentioned becoming a governess? It didn't make sense. Unless there was something he wasn't telling me. I understand, I whispered. He straightened up, his mask of ice sliding back into place. Good. The dressmaker will arrive at noon. He turned on his heel and walked out without looking back. I looked down at the paper. I had offered him an escape, and he had slammed the door in my face. I was going to be a duchess. I was going to be rich. But as I watched his carriage drive away, I couldn't shake the feeling that I hadn't just agreed to a marriage. I had agreed to keep a secret. 3 days later, I walked down the aisle toward a stranger. But the real shock wasn't the wedding, it was the wedding night. What happens when you are locked in a room with a man who is furious, powerful, and hiding a dark past? You do not want to miss Chapter 3, the wedding night, where the Stone Duke finally breaks. Make sure you are subscribed and have the bell notification on. I'll be posting the next part tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching until the end.